Howdy, everyone. Welcome to Tilson Live. It is Tuesday. It is 2 o'clock. We are coming to you live on YouTube, live on Facebook, as we do each and every single Tuesday here at Tilson Homes to bring you all things you need to know about building on your land. I'm Eric Allard, part of the fourth generation of the Tilson family, joined as I am each and every single week. The true work behind Tilson Live, the heavy lifting that is done and all the things that you see and some of the things you don't see. Dawn Dantzler. Hello, Dawn.
Hey, Eric. How's it going?
It is going great. It might be fall. It's happening. Nope, it's happening. There are already drops of rain. It can't change its mind. It's already started dropping rain. It's too late. But yeah, it's it's first fall or
first fall. Yeah.
So that's happening. It's a wonderful time. It's a wonderful time. But yeah, we are, folks, live on Facebook, live on YouTube, as we are each and every single week. Jump into the chat. Tell us where you're watching from, where you're building, what part of the process you're in. If you're just thinking about doing this, maybe this is something that you and your family have been talking about. You like where you live, but there's just something about the neighbors, that maybe we can do something a little different. Or maybe you're like, hey, this was a really cool deal, but my dream has always been to be out here on this kind of little bit larger piece of property. Maybe we got a goat or two, maybe a chicken coop, and maybe a little bit of space and a place for the grandkids to swing on the trees in the back, all that kind of stuff. Or when they're loud and rambunctious, you send them outside and all that. You don't have to worry about them playing in the street. Maybe that's your vision. So whatever your reason, we want to hear about it. We want to know why you're thinking about doing this. We're glad you're here. This is a great place to be if you're thinking about embarking on this journey. That is what we do. We've been doing this for over 90 years, building homes on people's land in predominantly rural areas of Texas. Although if your dream independent lifestyle is like, on an infill lot in the city, we do that too. So while folks are jumping in, guys, jump in. Tell us where you're watching from, where you're building. Tell us if it's raining where you are. Tell us if you are experiencing first fall, fake fall, full on fall, or if you're in some place like Anchorage or Denver. Tell us how wonderful and beautiful it is there, and we can all be envious of you. And while you're doing that, Dawn is going to be telling us a very important topic we're talking about today. Mrs. Dantzler, please go ahead. What do we got?
Yes. We are going to talk about the thing that is honestly the largest difference between building on your land and, what you may have experienced building in a community prior or just moving in. And that is developing your land for your build. So we're going to talk about everything that if you're building, in a DR Horton or a KB home or something like that, all that stuff that happened behind the scenes and built on your land, you get to have the input on that. And there's actually some decisions that you get to make and things that you need to do to get that property ready to have your new home on it. So that's what we're going to talk about today, is all the things that happen to make your land ready for building. Yeah,
believe it or not, we need your help. We need your help. So yeah, like Don said, the sales trailer you went into or model home you went into in XYZ subdivision, all of that initial stuff, your permit, your geotechnical, the entitlement, how big the lots were, the roads being cut in, sewer lines, water lines, transformers, power, all that stuff was decided before you ever saw a marketing piece on that community. So great news. You have a say in all of that in build on your land because, you got to develop the site. So we're going to talk all the things that go into that, not to overwhelm you. It's not the point, because we are here every single step of the way. The reason for this is so that you are aware. Okay, there is power in knowledge, and there's power in knowing these things, and knowing that we can help you every step of the way. What questions to ask, what raises red flags, what to be alarmed about, what not to be alarmed about. We are absolutely here to help you do all that stuff. So while you guys are jumping in, Tom's going to tell us who all's watching so far, and we'll welcome you, and then we're going to get this presentation going. Obviously, we're here to answer questions. But Dawn, who's here?
All right, we've got Sarah. I'm coming in from Rice, Texas, looking to build a house for myself and my sister on some of my acreage. Awesome.
There you go. Very cool.
We've got Debbie coming in from Bastrop. Hey, Debbie.
Welcome, Debbie. Howdy.
We've got Nick. Hey, guys, your friend from Florida. And yes, it's been raining for the past week here.
Okay, even Florida might be getting a fake fall. Who knows?
Yeah, very nice. We've got Kathy watching from San Antonio, bought 5 acres in Burnett County, Texas. Want to build a barn dough or a traditional home.
Hey, you are at the right place, Kathy. You're going to need to know this information, regardless of what you end up doing. This part of the process is pretty much going to be the same.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got Ted and Marcia building in Brazos County. Drywall and tape and float is complete.
Wow, awesome! Congratulations.
All right, we've got someone coming in from Lavernia, Texas. We are awaiting our first meeting with the builder. We chose the rock wall and are super excited about it.
Oh, very
Beautiful
cool.
house.
All right,
Very cool.
wonderful. Thanks for joining us.
We've got Twilla coming in from Killeen, Texas.
Welcome.
And then we have Wilma, Terry and Wilma in Las Vegas, Nevada. I have a lot at Canyon Lake.
All right,
it's a beautiful place.
Well, we complain about water in a hill country, and then you go to a place like Vegas, you're like, you know what? It's tougher out there. Definitely. We ain't seen nothing about water yet.
Absolutely. Then we've got Petra from San Antonio, just waiting on my color day. Oh,
all right.
nice.
So part of the process, yeah. So she's chosen the house, done the deposit. Now they're waiting on their appointment with their design consultant to come in and choose all of their color selections. Very, very exciting day. So hang in there.
Lots of decisions to be made.
So, folks, continue to jump in. Tell us where you're watching from, where you're building, what part of the process you're in. And obviously, this one generates typically a lot of questions about site preparation. So we want to answer every single one of them. That's why we're here. So if you got questions about soil testing or geotechnical investigation or clearing the site or culverts or septic systems or water wells or water meters or permits, any of that stuff, we are here to help answer all those questions. Construction drives, permanent drives, what the county said, what a replat is, what a survey is. We're going to talk about all that stuff. So as we go through, if something prompts a question, drop it in the chat, and we promise we'll get to it and answer it. We got some good folks monitoring the chat, and then Don will put the questions up, and we will answer all of those questions. And anything else you want to know about private, maybe it's about financing, maybe it's about customization, maybe it's about anything that you want to talk to about that regarding building on your land, or we're getting close to hunting season. We're in the throes of college football season, so we can talk all those things. There might be a pretty good sized game happening in College Station this weekend. Don't know. That might be a thing. And there might be an event going on this weekend in Waxahachie we talk about towards the end. So hang in there for that. All right. So folks, jump in. Tell us where you're watching from, where you're building, questions. We're going to jump into this presentation right away. Don, kick us off, and then we'll trade off going back and forth here. Why should people even listen to us? What's the deal here?
Well, if you want to go to the next slide, we can talk a little bit. So this is for anybody who might be new to the show or not sure who Tilson is. The why you should listen to us. We've been doing this for over 90 years and are the most experienced rural home builder in the state of Texas. Tilson was founded in 1932 and has been Texas family owned and operated for 4 generations now. We have built over 40,000 homes on our customers' land throughout the state of Texas. So we've done it a couple times. And on average, about 10 families per week are moving into their new Tilson home. So this is just to let you guys know, like, we are the experts. This is what we do. And that's why if you're here to learn about this, you're in the right place.
That's right. We've been on YouTube for 90 years. That's what you
90 years on YouTube. Feels like it.
Might be 90 years of content on YouTube. There might be that. Do the math one.
Yeah, pretty close. And just for those you either joining us, built on your lot. What we mean by that, if you're not familiar, is that it's yours. So it's your lot, your land, your farm or ranch. Could be that it's going to be your retirement or your second home, could be your main home, could be your dream. Like Eric was talking about, your lake property. It's really just about having the house of your choice built on a site that you own. So rather than buying the land and the home together as one thing, you've already found your property or you're in the process of finding your property, and now you need somebody to build a home on it. And like I said, this is the part of that process that is the most different from when you buy the 2 pieces together. So that's why we want to talk about it.
That's exactly right. Yeah. So some of the pre-construction responsibilities that are going to differ in ways that maybe aren't the same of what you experienced before is, number one, you may not even have an address yet. If you bought this vacant piece of land, raw land that's never had any type of dwelling on it whatsoever, you're going to first start with getting a what they call a 911 address from the county. The county will assign you an address. And of course, you'll use that to eventually go to the post office. So you not so you can get U.S. Postal Service, but so you can start getting Amazon package. That's the most important thing about the 911 address.
Get on that Amazon map early.
Yes, as fast as you can. Google matters to a lesser degree, but Amazon. If you don't exist to FedEx or UPS and Amazon, you don't exist. So, but also we need it to start pulling permits and things like that. It's important for that. Going to have utility setups that go hand in hand with that. So we'll talk in greater detail about those permit applications, and who the governing authority is. Is it a city? Is it a county? Is there a property owners association? And we'll talk more about that, about who's allowed to do that as we progress. And then any other responsibilities. There's all kinds of other stuff, and we can do them, or you can do them in some cases. And we'll talk through those as well. So before you build, there's some important documents. There's some utility, site access, site planning, and preparation. These are items that are necessary to start construction. The number one question we get when people walk in, the very first, besides maybe price, but most of that's on the website, is when are you going to get started? And then followed up by, what's the second most important question, Donna, they ask?
What do I need to get started?
Yeah, exactly. So, or they'll say, how long does the process take?
Right. Yeah.
When we start asking how long is the process, or we start answering how long the process takes, we're talking about the whole process, because that's really all you care about. But it's not, you come in and sign a contract and we run out tomorrow and start setting forms. There's some things we have to get before we can get started. So Dawn, you want to take us through some of these, and then I'll pick up on the site side.
Yeah. So the first thing I'm going to run through is important documents. I'll go into each of these in more detail, but generally what you're going to need is your deed and hopefully your title insurance that you got when you purchased your property, your plat and survey, and then any deed restrictions that might be on the property. So the first one for the deed, this is just your proof of ownership. So it says that you have purchased this piece of land and lays out the information about that land. So it's going to list the grantor, who was the seller, and the grantee, the buyer, which is you. Your name has to be on this paperwork. It's going to contain the property description, and it could potentially contain the price, the sales price on it, but that's not necessary. What we really just need is who sold it to you, that you are the one that bought it, the property description. The seller's signature must be notarized, and it must be recorded with the county in order to be valid. So you're going to need that seal or that receipt that this has been recorded in order for it to be considered a valid deed. Title insurance. So if you have not secured ownership in your land, always, this is our advice, get a title insurance policy. Even if this is a gift from a member of your family, still go ahead and get that title policy, that insurance. It just guarantees that there was a clean chain of ownership, that every time this property has transferred hands, it's been done without any judgments of liens against it. And this protects you in case somebody missed something along the way. So you can request that from the title company as soon as your earnest money is paid, or as soon as you just ask them to open title, and then make sure that you buy that policy. And that's going to give you the protection in case something was missed in the future. The next thing we're going to need is the boundary survey. And this is going to be a drawing of your property. And one thing we do need to make sure that you do on site is it's going to show on your boundary survey all the corner pins. So wherever there's a corner, there should actually be a pin physically on the property. Make sure that you can still locate all of those and that they are flagged, just so we can visually see the property lines there. So it's going to show your imaginary property lines. They're always going to be the darkest line on the survey. And then there's going to be a few other imaginary lines on here, just indicating things like your building lines, any easements. So that's if, have you granted an easement to utility, to the electric company so they can come and take care of their lines, things like that. Required setbacks. All of those kinds of things are going to be on here. So it's telling us exactly where we are allowed to put a permanent structure on your property, because we can't do that across building lines or on easements or anything like that.
Hey folks, if you don't have one of these, don't panic. We can help you with this. We can recommend surveyors. We can get it done for you. If you do have one, you're like, oh man, like it was done a long time ago, or I can't find the pins, or I can find one of the pins but not the other 3 or 2 or whatever. That's okay. We can help you through that. We can get out there to do a stake survey. Flag the pins for us, and we can help you get that done. So don't feel like you're like, well, I don't know where to start from here. So we can help.
Yeah. And the other reason that we do like to talk about this is if you are in the process of purchasing property, these are things that you should be requesting from the seller. Make sure they let them do some of this work and get all this material from them. But the survey is going to show us everything we need to know, give us all dimensions, all of that. And also same thing here, when we were talking about it needed to be recorded, we need to make sure that we have a registered professional licensed land surveyor who has completed this. So it should have his signature, his or her signature in their seal to indicate that this is a valid survey. And then the last series of paperwork that we're going to need is your deed restrictions and covenants. And this is one definitely, if you are in the process of buying property, make sure that you get a copy of these, because these are going to declare exactly what you can build on that property and all of the rules for living there. So by buying the property, you're agreeing to these. So make sure that you have read them before, and that you actually do agree with them before you buy the property. So it's going to vary depending on exactly where the land is, and depending on how strict the different communities are. So it's going to include some things that we typically see are home design requirements, like a minimum square footage. If you're talking about somewhere, somebody said they had property in Canyon Lake, you probably have a maximum height on your home because they don't want your property to obscure someone else's lake, water view. So they're going to tell you it can only be so tall. It's going to have material requirements. What types of siding are acceptable? Is there a minimum percentage of masonry that has to be on the home, a particular type of roofing or a style of roof? Those things are going to be covered. We also frequently see garage requirements, whether it has to be attached, is it detached allowed, what way can the bays face, how many, is there a limit to how many you can have? Those types of things are usually covered. And then any type of plan approval guidelines is going to tell us how do we get those plans approved if there is an architectural review committee or some board that needs to look through them. The other thing that we will frequently see in here is the requirements for construction. So we're also interested in those. That's going to include stuff like what hours can construction actively happen? Is there any limitation on weight of trucks, or what entrance we have to use? Is there a deposit? Things like that are going to be covered as well. So that's why we're looking for those.
Okay, so we can pause a little bit here. I saw we had a couple great questions pop up.
Yes.
So we got some other, but yeah, folks, right here, great time. Drop your questions in here, where you're watching from, where you're building, what part of the process, obviously, but also questions about site development or anything else. That's what we're here for. We got some good ones coming up.
All right, we've got Rachel from Arlington sharing that she bought land in Waxahachie and has an appointment with Nick this Saturday to get started. Awesome.
I may see you there.
That's great. We've got Kathy. The developer for our land has put up a fence and gate. Do you still need the boundary survey?
Okay, yes. So the answer is yes. So not saying that they're not accurate, doesn't mean anything, but again, the developer is not a registered professional land surveyor. So they would have done a plat. The developer did a plat. They probably had to submit that. So I know your next question, they bought a ranch and split it up into lots. Yep. Super common. That's how almost all developers do it. So they would have had to get that platted, which a surveyor would have platted that and then taken that to the county, usually commissioner's court. It has to pass commissioner's court. The county has to accept that. They accept the width of they have stipulations about how wide the roads need to be, how big cul-de-sacs need to be for like fire trucks to turn around, that kind of stuff. How the roads have to be built, and then minimum lot sizes, that kind of stuff. So, but going back to the question about fencing the gate. So in your situation, it's the fence is probably right. In most situations, because your developer put it in, a fence is nothing more than a path of least resistance. So fences are the least, broadly speaking, Kathy, I'm not talking about your situation, but broadly speaking, a fence is where the fence contractor's crew went through. That was pretty close to the property line, but avoided trees, avoided whatever, rocks in the area, a big gully or ditch in the area. I never ever would recommend that you see a fence and say that's the property line for sure, 100% guaranteed. Even in a little 50-foot by 100-foot subdivision, it doesn't mean anything.
Well, that's because they also tell you how close you can put the fence to the property line.
Right. Well, yeah, even that varies. So anyway, there'll be an iron pin somewhere there. The good news is, since it's probably freshly platted, Kathy, that we can probably get that surveyor out there to do the lender's going to require it anyway. If you're getting a mortgage, they're going to require it anyway. And so it will have to be done, and you will want the peace of mind knowing exactly where those corners are, so because most likely the developer that you're dealing with has, like Don was talking about, a setback line. Like you can only build within whatever 50 feet or 75 feet or 100 feet of the front property line. You can only build within 25 feet of the side and back, property lines. Well, they don't reference the fence in those restrictions. They reference the property line. So we have to know exactly where that property line is. And the only way to do that is have a surveyor go out and actually do a boundary survey. So wonderful question.
Okay. Awesome. We've got Betty. Hello from Schulenburg. We just had our second color appointment Sunday and hoping to get started on our Laporte by December.
Round 2. Okay.
Yay. And let's see, we have somebody joining us from Tyler, Texas. I want to recognize Matt McGilligan, our build manager. He is there to correct mistakes and address our questions and concerns. Could not ask for a better. Oh, thank you
for
so
sharing this, Wilcox. Yeah, thanks for joining us again. It's good to see you again. And yeah, shout out to Matt. He's a fantastic communicator. We get a ton of compliments on him.
And then we've got Joe, interested in wind shear, familiar here on the Gulf Coast. Since past tornadic activity near my property in Poolville, do wind restrictions change in various areas of the state? Area is unrestricted. Yeah, the only place that has any documented code-related wind ratings is along the coast for windstorm. I don't think it's called windstorm anymore. It's called something else. But it in basically any county that borders the Gulf of Mexico. So you're talking hurricanes. They are the only one, and that's decided on by the Texas Department of Insurance. So TDI dictates what the wind ratings must be for inland 1, inland 2, seaward, all the various points. But outside of that, there is no wind shear ratings for the code as far as it goes from county to county. And I'm glad you mentioned this tornadic activity. The reason they don't is you can't build a tornado-proof house. It's not a thing. Well, I guess that's true. You might could build one out of concrete and steel. Maybe if it had no windows, but that wouldn't. All the rest of the time that you live in that you're not having a tornado, it would be a very unpleasant and sad place to live. So Joe, they cameras struggling with the phone. You gotta stop moving. I know I can't. I move when I talk. It's what I do. So that's why I said I used to stand up and do these, and I can't because I just walk around the room. So, but yeah, there's nothing you can do. Don't get caught up in tornado proofing, tornado this, tornado that. There's nothing you can do about that for the home. Now, you want to do some type of a family safe type shelter or something like that inside, or maybe just outside in the ground. We can talk about that, but nothing can be done to this house from a functional standpoint and still have it look like any of the homes that are in our portfolio or anyone else's portfolio and have it survive a F3, F4, F5 tornado. It's not going to happen. Even on the Gulf Coast where it's hurricane stuff, they're built to withstand it's either 120 or 130 mile an hour gust for 3 seconds. Okay. Well, typically a tornado is much heavier, 180, 185, 200 miles an hour sustained winds, not gust, sustained. And it's going to go away. So, fortunately, tornadoes are way, 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 way smaller than, not taking away from anyone who has tornado damage, but they're way smaller than a hurricane, and they're in and out real quick. They don't dump a bunch of rain. They don't sit there and swirl on top of Galveston Island for 3 days straight, that kind of stuff. It's a very different type of storm we're preparing for, but great question. Okay. And then we've got Misty joining us from Mansfield, building in Hood County, the San Jacinto Extra Large. Yes. That's right. Yeah. Beautiful. Very cool. Welcome back. Yeah. All right. So again, folks, keep dropping your questions in. We are going to now start talking about some more nuts and bolts stuff. We are talking power. We're talking water, septic, or sewer system, or are you natural gas, propane. But these are some of the things these are all things that you're going to need when you're in the house. You're going to want these. These are important. And there's stuff that they don't all have to be done before you start construction, but there does have to be a plan of how it's going to get done. Right. Sometimes that's for us or your own benefit. Sometimes the county or state or city is going to require it. Like you can't just go out there and put a septic system in wherever you feel like you think it ought to go, for example. We'll talk about that here in a second. But we're talking utilities. So if you got questions about utilities, this is for you. Here's the big one. Power. Gonna have to have power. Tesla's not building houses yet, thankfully. We got no battery powered house. You still have to charge it somewhere. So best of luck with that.
Power looks different ways in different parts of the state. Texas is a deregulated state, meaning that it's kind of loose on the parameters of how you get power to sites. So every co-op, which is what probably 90% of our customers are in, they're in a cooperative power situation. That would be your Sam Houston Electric Co-op, Houston County Electric Co-op, Guadalupe Valley Electric Co-op, Pedernales Electric Co-op, Grayson County Electric. So most of the people we build for, they're in some type of a cooperative. They all have different ways that they do this. Okay, so we're going to paint a really broad brush here. And if you've got specific questions, we can help you with them. If you've got even more specific questions, we may want to set up an appointment and visit with you.
Right.
But in all cases, we got to figure out how to get power to the lot, to your site. We need ideally you can meet a representative out there. That's the ideal situation. It can happen while we're out doing our site evaluation. That's fantastic if we can make that happen. We also are set up to talk to these folks with you. One of the best things to do is get on a 3-way call. You get a hold of your representative, because a lot of times they won't talk to us because we don't own the land. But if you get them on the phone and then you get our site evaluation, our stakeout superintendent on the phone, and we can help translate, ask questions, do clarification, we'd be happy to do that if we can't meet out there in person with them. We'll need some type of power to build. In some cases, it'll be temporary. Some cases, it'll be the permanent power. And we can connect to permanent once it's done, and it can be overhead, it can be underground. So I've got 4 different styles, so to speak, on here that you might see around different parts of the state. The first one it was very old, traditional, still done in a lot of areas. You could look way in the back here. You can see a transformer on a pole. You can see the power lines high and low, and then they've come up by pole here. The house is probably being built somewhere around where the camera is where the picture is being taken from. And this is a temporary pole. So the electrician would have come out, set this, staked it in the ground because it's not permanent, it's temporary. The electrician would have coiled up some electrical wire up here, and then the power company comes out. They hook up that electrical wire, and they actually stick this meter in here. We would have provided, or electrician provided, this little breaker panel, a couple of outlets, so for saws, compressors, all that kind of good stuff. So this is a temporary power situation. These other 2 are permanent power situations that can serve as temporary as well. This one here, first one is called a meter rack. So we see this a lot with Pedernales Electric Co-op and other providers. But truly, there'll be a rack somewhere on site, typically pretty close to the house, but not necessarily up against it. Most of our design center locations are done this way because they're larger. They've got 3 houses, couple of buildings, but they're set in concrete. You'll have to get a bid for this in a lot of cases. The power company will have specifications what they want done, but they don't necessarily do this. We hire an electrician to get this done. They inspect it. They're going to inspect the trench. They want the trench to be open when they inspect it. They dictate what size conduit there has to be, what size wire, how deep it has to be, all that kind of good stuff. And you can actually see coming off here, there's a little plug coming off of here, and that we'll use that to run saws and compressor stuff for construction. Very similar situation here. So this is Mid-South Electric Co-op, and it is overhead power going through the property, but then they come down with this conduit to an underground pedestal here. So the meter goes here, and then power goes underground from here to the home, or in this case, to the home and to a shop, a metal building. So this is actually a 400 amp service here, and you can see real small. It's got little outlets on either side of it. Same thing to work on for tools and all that kind of good stuff. And then lastly here is what you'll hear referred to sometimes as a member-owned pole. So it's kind of a hybrid of the temporary pole situation and this permanent pedestal thing.
Okay.
So the breaker box will actually be located here on the member-owned pole along with the meter can. And then in this case, it's overhead power. You can do the exact same thing with underground. If you look at your breaker, if it's located outside of your home or garage or whatever, you can actually look above it and below it. There's little circle patterns. They're called knockouts. So the boxes are flexible. They can be done for underground power, overhead power, and electricians just knock out, literally punch out little holes. They're perforated, whichever they need to go, and they roll from there. So but we can help you with this. This can be a very confusing and time-consuming one because
Mhm.
they're way behind still on power in a lot of situations. But permanent power is a big deal. Water wells. We got to have water. You'll have two options basically. You're going to have a water well that services your home. It may be your water well. You may be sharing a well with a neighbor or family member. We have that situation. And then the other option is some type of a water meter that will come from either community water or a city, a municipality, or a mud district providing it. So in either case, obviously, you'll need, if it's a water meter, you'll pay usually a tap fee and pay for the meter, and then we hook up. We include a certain amount of footage from the meter to the home that we already include, or you'll have a well drilled. Definitely talk to well installers in your area, find out what their lead times are. In some parts of the state, it's 9 or 10 months, and other parts it's 3 or 4 weeks. So
Okay.
it just depends on where you're building, how long lead time is. Interesting fun fact for the day: the big tank you see above the ground is not the well. The well is here. The well is a usually 4, maybe 6-inch diameter concrete PVC pipe deal that goes down into the ground a couple hundred feet. That is the actual well. The pressure tank here is like a miniature version of what you see at a water tower in your town.
Okay.
It's got water in it to probably about here, and then there's big old air bubble up here, and that just keeps pressure on your home. So when you open your faucets, you can actually wash your hands, not just dribble water onto your hands. So anyway,
Interesting.
we can help you with this same thing. Septic or sewer system, like 91% of the customers we build for are going to have some type of a septic system. And I would say probably 85% of those 90, there's a math problem for you. Anytime you see the word "of," that's a multiplication sign. So you'll see. I was listening, Miss Cahoon. So you'll. This is what an aerobic system is. What broadly speaking, most of our customers are going to have, and you'll probably doing that. So this is OSSF, on-site sewage facility, is all it stands for. If you're inside of a city, you may still have a septic system inside of a city, but a few customers we build for will actually tap into the sewer line. So they got some calculation get involved in there because we got to figure out where the sewer tap is, how far below the street is it, and all that kind of. How do you tap into it? Do we have to put manholes in? Most of the time, it's going to be a septic system, and we help you get where the layout's going to be, and because there's some stipulations from the. I'm going wait. How do I do this? Trek. No, you're not Trek. That's real estate commission. Oh my gosh! First person who tells me the governing entity for sewers in Texas gets the Tilson koozie or Tilson Yeti. We got a Tilson Yeti somewhere. So put it in the chat. Put into the chat who it is. I refuse to Google it. I'm not rewarding myself that way. But anyway, so we have a septic system, and what it is it treats the water there on site. So your wastewater goes into this. There are actually 3 chambers within this concrete tank. And so there's a solids tank and then a treatment tank where aerobic bacteria actually treats the water. It goes into a holding tank, and then it is typically sprayed out as a surface application, or it could be a drip application where it doesn't spray. Usually find those where you have a high clay content, not a lot of room on the property, so like a lakefront lot, something like that. We'll see a lot of those.
Okay.
In all cases in Texas, there is a septic permit. There may not be a building permit, but there's always going to be a septic permit. Okay, so that's a state law. Some type of registered sanitarian or professional engineer has to design it. Again, there are stipulations of how close it can be to a water well, how close it can be to your neighbor's water well, how close it can be to the house, how close the sprayer heads can spray to the house, to the property line. But again, we can help with all this. It's not a big deal. This is done again on 91% of what we build. So no big deal at all. I can remember the old name, which is TNRCC, the Texas Natural, but we nicknamed them Train Wreck, so they changed it. TCEQ. Nobody gets a koozie. Nobody gets a Yeti. All right, Texas Commission on Environmental Quality sets the stipulations. One reason I get into that, guys, is because they're going to do what's called a perk test, not the same as our soil test or geotech. They're typically just digging a hole to see, basically, just like coffee percolates through the filter, how well or not does water percolate into the soil. because you're technically spraying wastewater onto the surface of the ground, and they want to see, hey, between how many hours of sunlight a day do you get, and how saturated the soil could get. Is it a sandy loam? Is it high clay? Is it rock? How well could it dry out or evaporate that wastewater? That's all they're trying to figure out. It's not like some super complicated thing. And that will based on how your soil does that will dictate how many square feet of area you need for your spray field or your septic field. There are still some folks that can put a conventional system in. Don't let anybody tell you that conventional systems are outlawed in Texas. That's not true. You can still do conventional systems. They are pretty tight on the standards. But it can still be done in many, many areas. So,
all right.
Lastly, if you're not going to be all electric, so a lot of our customers are just totally electric. We got heat pump on the HVAC system, and but if you're going to have gas, your option is going to be natural gas or propane. For most of our customers, it's going to be propane. They're not going to have natural gas already in the that has been installed. You can't just plug into a gas well. That's not allowed. You can't do that. Someone has to deliver the gas to you,
right?
In some way. It's really easy to see, folks. You're driving around. If you see the classic little meters kind of sticking out of the ground close to the street, that usually means there is natural gas in the area. But most of what we see in the rural places we build are propane tanks. A couple ways to do it. Literally 2 ways to do it: above ground or underground. So that's it. Those are the only options. We're not putting on top of the house. That's not happening. Justin says no. You can paint your tank to look like a cow or a pig or something like that if you want to. You also have options of leasing them or buying them. There's no reason to go in the pros and cons right now. You can discuss that with your propane provider. But it's 6 one way, half dozen the other. Try to buy in the summertime if you can. Typically gas prices are lower. But other than that, obviously it's a great way if you want this for cooking or for your water heater or for your furnaces. That's fine. I will say, now that we're doing spray foam statewide, if you do this for your furnaces and water heaters, we have to upgrade the units pretty significantly to make sure that we have the highest efficiency ones that burning all the fuel. You can't have any gas pooling in the attic. That's a bad thing. So not to worry. We have all the stipulations you need to get it, what the type of furnaces and water heaters you would need to do that. Tankless it works great too. So, okay.
All right.
We're getting to site access. Let's say howdy to some folks again.
Yes. All right. We've got Misty sharing that Lone Star Safe Rooms will build custom safe rooms in almost any location, even after the build is completed. So if you're worried about the tornadoes.
Yep. Perfect.
Then we've got Mark and Cindy in New Caney. We now have a water meter set on our Burleson County property. We are making progress. Does a water faucet at the gate near the meter on a square 4.5 acre lot work for a home build?
Okay. It'll probably work, Mark. I remember visiting with you in the spring. 4.5 acres. To me, it would depend on how far away from the house it is. So here's kind of all right, we'll go ahead. We'll be perfectly transparent. I have found that with water, dumpsters, porta cans, things like this, the closer they are to the home, the more frequently and diligently they are used. Okay, so it's human beings, right, Mark? So if it's pouring down rain and the water spigot is 300 feet away, I want to clean my brushes or maybe throw them. It's just the closer you can get, the better. Will it work? Absolutely, and we can run hoses all the way up to the house. That'd work fine. Some guys will have hoses they bring with them. Some will not. Just being perfectly honest. I'd probably, again, I don't know how far away at the gate it is. I'd love the idea of having it at the gate if I were you, just for later. You have plants or anything like that there. You can water them. Obviously, it's it could be temporary. It could be permanent, whatever. I might run it a little further down. If you don't have your driveway in place yet, maybe you don't. And I think maybe we don't want to do it then if you don't want to. But just as long as we have an understanding of just general human behavior, the easier things are to use, the more likely they are to be used for their intended purpose. Do you have anything to add to that, Dawn?
No, I think that's fair. All right. And then Misty is sharing the meter rack is in and should have power within the next
There
2
we go.
weeks.
All right.
Awesome.
Case in point. Eric's not a liar. This is
Mm.
good news.
We got Joe is building a
I'll
Canyon
help you.
D in Walder.
Welder.
Whalder. Okay. 3 months now working with GVAC to get power. At what exact point is power
Right. Okay.
required?
So, Joe, great question. So he's working with Guadalupe Valley Electric Co-op, who's one of my favorites that I mentioned. And by the way, if I mentioned them, well, never mind. That's not true. There are,
You don't get on Eric's favorite list for being awesome a lot of times.
there's something I can't say enough good stuff about Mid South Electric Co-op. I cannot. And I'll throw Chico in there in a very distant second place. So the rest are also rants. Period. Get your stuff together. You got good people out there. They're trying to get better and pay you money for the rest of their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Get with the program. So, look, can we build on generator power? The answer is yes. We have a process to charge for that. It's not cheap. And so I don't want to have to charge customers for building on generator. We have, it's customers' discretion. They want to do that. We can do that. I mean, it's really, really difficult to frame the house without power. Like, it's impossible to frame the house without power. We can do the foundation part. It's not optimal, but we can get done. We can leave, boards running wild, right? Because we're not, all we need is a square corner. It doesn't matter if the board's 2 or 3 feet longer than it's supposed to be. We just need the square corner. So there's still a lot of cutting that has to be done, but a lot of those guys will bring generators with them, or battery powered saws now, that kind of stuff. But for framing, battery power ain't going to get it. It's going to have to be, we got to have real power from framing on. Ideally, I'd like it before we ever start construction, but I don't know what the deal is out there with why they can't get it. I mean, I get it. Labor's tough still. I mean, they don't have a lot of manpower, but I mean, just stay on top of it. We for sure have to have it before we start construction. And obviously the mortgage company will not close on it if it doesn't have power, period. So that is a showstopper, but stay on top of them, Joe. Regardless of what I say or how I go about it, you do get more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. So the old roadhouse, be nice until it's time to not be nice. That's what you can do, but be nice. But go by, and just, hey, what can I do to help you guys? What's the, make sure that you have everything you need on your site, right? If there's anything we can help you with, let us know, because obviously we want to help you get this thing going. But yeah, just hang in there with them. They're not perfect, neither are we, and I get it. But it's time.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
Great questions, guys. Keep asking the questions. We're going to get into a little bit more site access. Dawn's going to talk to us about the exciting thing. Dawn, when you were going to school for marketing, how many times did you dream of at Clemson, South Carolina, talking about culverts and all-weather access in your career?
Zero.
And yet, here we are.
And yet here we are. No, I think I remember when I first started working here being like, hey, Eric, what's a culvert?
Exactly. I'm like, let me draw you a picture. Yeah. And you're like, your picture's awful. I'm going to go take a picture. So
we're going to draw our own picture. All right. So site access. So guys, we've got to be able to get to your property and exactly where you want to build your home on your property. So that's why we are talking about that. We are going to need all weather access. So there needs to be some way for us to get these construction vehicles and all of these heavy deliveries out to the home site. It's not necessarily going to be your final driveway or even the same final location of your permanent driveway, but we do need something that's going to get us within about 20 feet of where you want your home to make sure that we can get the crew in and, more importantly, get them out. You don't want these vehicles stuck on your property. Part of that is going to be having the culvert because we want to make sure that we are still maintaining water movement, around, and water's not pooling next to your driveway when we install it. So this is just allowing the water to pass under the driveway. Your size is going to be determined by the county. In many areas, these are permitted. So they're going to tell us exactly what size of a culvert we need to put in. And it's really just a tube that's allowing the water to pass through. And I know we get the question a lot, yes, that plastic corrugated tube that you see right there does support the weight as long as it's installed properly. And so, yeah, we'll work with you to figure out what size that needs to be and how to get that installed for you. And the next step is, basically kind of doing the site planning and preparation of the actual property. So we've got a few stages that we go through in this. We've got that stakeout meeting, site evaluation that Eric's mentioned a couple times, and we'll go into more detail on that. We'll also put together a site plan, which is actually the layout. Where's the house going to be? Where are all your stubs going to come in? How are we connecting everything? And then finally, you've got site preparation. So actually doing the cleaning and the groundwork and putting in that site access. So at your site evaluation and stakeout, this was really exciting. It's a great meeting. It's the first time that we're going to actually meet you out on your property. So you're going to meet with one of our land prep specialists and talk about exactly where you want to put your home, decide the best spot. So they'll talk to you about where you want to put it. They may have some suggestions of if you go 2 feet this way, this might be better. But we'll also talk about, making sure that we've taken into account all that information from your survey. So clearances, easements, setbacks. They'll talk to you about any additional needs. They are going to take grade shots and figure out how out of level your property is, because nobody's property is flat, sorry. So figure out how out of level it is and what we need to do with that. Identify any type of additional site clearing that we might need, and also where the best point for access will be. They'll also look at the site and measure how far we are from the electrical and the water hookups to make sure that we're taking into account how much line we need. And both of you are gonna leave with a list of responsibilities. So we're gonna have a list of things that Tilson needs to do, as well as a list of things that you need to do in order to get this property ready. From there, we'll put together a site plan and how pretty this is, for lack of a better word, how cleaned up and dressed up this is going to depend on the approval process for your area. This one that we are showing is from Vintage Oaks, and we have to turn in a very professional one to their architectural review committee to get approval. So, but what this is going to do is it's just going to be a drawing that's going to take all that information from your survey. So the property lines, the setbacks, the building lines, all of that, and then actually sketch out the house itself. So here's exactly the dimensions of the house, where that's going to be. And then depending upon the extra requirements that we have, we're going to mark in, okay, this is where the septic field is. This is where the utility stubs are coming in. If we've got driveways that we need to have approved, those will be added onto here as well. Just kind of showing everything that we're planning to do with your home. And then the last step is the site clearing. So once we've identified everything that needs to be removed, it is time to get all those trees, stumps, and most importantly, the roots pulled up. Obviously, we're going to want to preserve as many trees as possible, because it's probably a good reason why you bought the land. Good part of the reason you bought the land is for those trees. But we need to make sure that we get out enough that we're not jeopardizing the foundation. And very important, particularly with really large trees, we've got to get that root ball out when we are taking them up, because you don't want it decomposing under your foundation and causing a collapse later. All right, and then we get to groundwork. So in some cases, we need to bring in some additional dirt work, some dirt to prepare for construction. So we're going to do that. And this is just preparing everything. We want to have a level surface when we're bringing in your foundation, and also make sure that we are doing proper drainage and making sure that water is running away from your home and your property. So this is just kind of leveling everything out, putting the slope on it that we need to ensure that drainage. And that's it. Now we would move on to the fun part and actually start construction.
Yes, or in our case, the fun part, answering questions.
Answering questions, yes. All right, so let's go in. All right, we've got Nick from Florida again. I have a big question for you guys today. Do you guys build in Hardin County? If so or not, what do you think about it? I'm seeing cheap land there, like 10 to 12 acres from 60 to 80,000. Why is that? Then he's wondering if you're familiar with the area, how are flooding, groceries, etc.
Yeah, we've been building out there for the better part of the 90 years we've been in existence. So yeah, it's a great area, and I can remember a time where if you told me that 10 acres in Silsbee, Texas was 80 grand, I told you you're crazy. No one's ever going to pay that much out there. So, everything's relative, Nick. It's a great area. You're north of Beaumont. So you got a major metropolitan area there you can get to. And for hospitals and all that kind of good stuff, but you're out of the windstorm zone, right? You're out of, I'm not saying you couldn't still get a storm there, but you are out of the required. So you got Jefferson County to the south of you, and Chambers County to the southwest of you. So those are TDI windstorm counties. Hardin County is not, but you got Silsbee, Koontz, Lumberton, Sour Lake. Those are all very, very popular areas that we've built a bunch of houses in. So yeah, it's amenities wise, right? Not going to have nearly what Republic Grand Ranch has, which I think is, there's no way. But not everybody wants to be in the $150,000 to $180,000 lot, deed restricted subdivision, and East Texas offers that. You're just north of what they call the Golden Triangle, Beaumont, Port Arthur area, and again, there's a lot out there, but a lot of trees. It's the town of Lumberton is named that for a reason. Town of lumber. Big lumber operations out there. Temple Inland, Louisiana Pacific, all have major operations. Diboll was actually a long time the headquarters for one of them, which is just to the north of that. So that's usually what it is. You have to love East Texas, but it doesn't look that different, quite frankly, from Republic Grand Ranch. I can tell you all of Republic Grand Ranch and Texas Grand Ranch both were owned by gigantic lumber companies for many, many, many years before they were sold to developers. So they were doing the same thing. They're harvesting timber. Champion Paper, a lot of those have those. Boise Cascade, they have leases there. So good spot. It's a great area. I think it's a great area. I like East Texas though. So if you're after cactus and rocks and 30-foot down, terrain and views for 20 miles, Hardin County is not going to have that. But if you like pine trees and red dirt and quiet country living, Hardin County has that. A lot of it.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, he said his first house was Republic Grand Ranch because he really likes the big trees and everything just 15 minutes away. But thinking if he can get more acreage for his bucks, he doesn't know why he wouldn't consider it. I would be aware of utility costs, because one of the other reasons everything is more expensive in RGR with location and stuff is they're doing a lot of the utility work for you and the high-speed internet. Nick, I don't know if you've taken that into account. Those types of things, you will end up paying a little bit more for those. So you got to kind of balance it out.
Or Starlink is your friend.
Starlink is your friend, yes. And then the Silcox has a question about the roof. We upgraded the shingles to duration. We have the Rhino underlayment on the decking as of Saturday. When the shingles are installed, do we get the ice water shield and starter row ridge? All right.
Great questions. And I'll confess, I did phone a friend. So I hit up the VPs of construction to be sure I was accurate. I had a hunch. All right. Two part here. Ice water shield. We only see Owens Corning only recommends that if it's like a 412, maybe even less than that, maybe a 312 pitch, like a really shallow pitch, right? So if you have enough fall, enough of pitch steepness, you don't have to worry about water or anything, wicking up underneath there. It's when you have kind of a flatter pitch roof, because those duration shingles are thicker. That's what you paid for a little bit upgrade. They're a little bit thicker shingle, and so if it's flat, we never do it flat, but if it's, I don't think you even use them less than a 312 pitch. OC won't let you use them. So if it's a flatter pitch, they do require that ice water shield so that water doesn't get up underneath there onto your decking and rot it out. And then on the starter row, yes, we're going to be using starter rows no matter what. So great questions.
All right. Awesome.
Nice. All right. So we can make that we can start doing a last call for questions, folks. That's why we're here. If you got any questions about site preparation, customization, financing, building a home on your land, just about anything about the process in general, we can help you with that. Dawn, what's going on this weekend in Waxahachie, Texas, or is anything going on?
So beautiful weather. Yes, beautiful weather. I've seen 70s.
Yes, they will hear you.
I know.
They will hear you.
I know. So it's cooler. It's not triple digits, guys.
It's not.
So yeah, our Waxahachie office is doing their fall festival. So they are going to kick things off at 11 with a construction seminar. And then they're just going to have fall activities all day. So our construction team is going to be out there grilling on the lawn and serving up lunch to everybody. And they're going to have a bunch of fun family games. And there's a pumpkin patch for the kids. So decorate pumpkins and all of that. They've got some family photo shoot setups that they're doing. So it should be just a fun day. Come out and see some houses and learn about construction and have a great time with the kids. Our spring office is also doing a construction seminar for our Gulf Coast folks. It's a little closer to you than getting up to Waxahachie. But yeah, we got seminars going on this weekend.
Lot to learn. Beautiful weather. Fall is here, so yes, you could. Although at this point, I think all the retailers have like moved all the pumpkin stuff's gone, and that's Christmas stuff.
That's Christmas, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't. Yeah. Poor fall did not get to make it. We have like a pumpkin and then a Christmas present in our house so far. I think is like that's Rachel has checked some boxes. So
there you go.
Yeah. So that's what's going on this weekend. We got a question from Twyla.
Yeah, Twyla is asking if we will ever add basements to our home designs.
Hopefully not, because that will mean that the water table in Texas has dropped so far that we can actually put them in without turning them into saunas. But at this point, no, ma'am, it is not something that's on our radar to do basements. There's just too much water content in predominantly most of the areas where we build. And then in other areas, there's just really not any labor that knows how to do it, quite frankly, us included. Mm-hmm. It's a foreign concept to the Texas markets by and large. There are a few pockets here and there that you get into high-end, high custom that will do it. And mostly that's the case because you're spending hundreds of thousands of dollars on waterproofing. Right. And even then, it's still a fingers crossed and say your prayers, and we hope it is impenetrable by water, which we have not found that to be the case. So, yeah, absolutely. Obviously, we're grateful that you're all here. It doesn't have to end here, though. I mean, we got a website that's open 24/7 that's got a ton of things you can do on it, all kinds of virtual tours you can do, plan customizations you can do, get your questions answered by our new home specialists that are on there ready to go. We got 12 locations open 7 days a week for you guys to stop by. They're there to answer your questions, make customizations, walk you through all the stuff we talked about today, specific to your area where your property is. So they can help you a lot more, granularly than we can here as far as what the power company needs, what permits need to be pulled and who you talk to about that. What surveyor can I talk to? We can hook you up with all that kind of stuff, get those questions answered, and mainly just kind of remove all that, the fog that is nebulous building a home on my land. They have all the answers, and if not, they can make a couple phone calls and get them. So we hope you find these things helpful, and because we're going to keep doing them. And until then, we genuinely soon hope to make you part of the Tilson family. We'll see you guys later.
Bye, everybody.